Unravelling the European onion is difficult. With the news dominated by Brexit, Fact Me Up has decided to find some historical links between Brighton and all 27 EU nations. Now, obviously 27 is quite a big number, so we're going to divide it into 3 parts. Of 9 countries each, and we're going to do it alphabetically. So next stop, Australia, or possibly Austria. Roll titles. Austria. Probably the most prominent Austrian politician ever was Prince Clemens von Metternich. He served as Austria's foreign minister for 39 years and its prime minister for 27. He was a vital figure in uniting most of Europe against Napoleon. When the revolutions of 1848 took hold, he, like many, fled to London. Finding the capital too expensive, some things never change, he swiftly relocated to Hove, living at 42 Brunswick Terrace, right next door to the Brunswick pub. British Prime Ministers Palmerston and Disraeli were amongst those who popped down for a pint with him. Belgium. It's often been said, somewhat cruelly, that the most famous Belgians are fictional characters. Of these, we're sorry to report that Tintin has never made it to Brighton, although he has come close. In the Black Island, he catches a ferry to Newhaven and is dangled off Seaford's cliffs by bad guys, although later versions relocate much of that action to Kent. Boo! Meanwhile, Hercule Poirot has an entire tale set in Brighton. One of Agatha Christie's first short stories about the Belgian sleuth, the jewel robbery at the Grand Metropolitan, is set in the Brighton hotel of that name, a mixture of the Grand and Metropole, although the TV version used Saltdean's Ocean Hotel. What of the Smurfs? Have they ever been to Brighton? Not that we know of. Sorry, Hefty Smurf. Bulgaria. A little under half of the 27 EU nations have had internationals who represented Brighton and Hove Albion. Fact Me Up was going to focus on just one, the Bulgarian right-back turned central midfielder Radostin Kishishev. Although he only played 1 season for the Albion, it was 2010-11 when they won the League One title and started their climb up the divisions. Despite being in his late 30s, a time when most footballers are put out to pasture, he actually appeared in around 2/3 of their games. Hurrah for rah-rah Radostin. Pop quiz. How many of the 27 other EU countries have streets in the city of Brighton and Hove named after either the country or its capital, e.g. Portugal Road, Paris Avenue? Have a think, the answers will be later in this episode. Croatia. Deep Electronica. Fact Me Up has no idea what it is, but apparently DJ Brighton is a big name in it. He's been mixing the spins in legendary clubs in Berlin, Frankfurt and elsewhere for over a decade. You'd be forgiven if you've not heard of him. Despite the excellent choice of DJ name, he actually comes from Zagreb, which isn't a Doctor Who enemy, but the capital of Croatia. Cyprus. Possibly the most famous Greek Cypriot character in the history of British television is Chris Theodopoulos out of the long-running unfunny sitcom Birds of a Feather, played most of the time by the actor Peter Polycarpou, who was born in Brighton, brought up in a children's home here and says this is the place he feels most drawn to. Czech Republic. Of the many previous pubs and bars in Brighton, perhaps the strangest was a 90s quartet at the seafront end of East Street. There was O'Donovan's, an Irish bar, Alley Cat's, a cellar bar, Hooch's, a pre-club bar, and Café Prague, which was a little more genteel. Despite having different names and entrances, they were all actually the same pub, interconnected with corridors and toilets. Why they chose the name of the Czech capital for the posh bit, nobody knows. Despite efforts to turn it into a Burger King or a craft ale pub, the site remains empty. Quiz answers. So how many of the 27 EU countries have streets in Brighton and Hove named after either the capital or the country itself? In terms of the country itself, only 1, but there are 4 streets named after it. Well done, Denmark. In terms of capitals, none of them have streets named after their capital. The closest is a courtyard at the marina called Copenhagen Court. So again, yay Denmark. Speaking of which, Denmark. For many years, Brighton was home to a highly praised Prince of Denmark. I'm not talking about a royal, but an actor, the legendary Laurence Olivier, who won his only acting Oscar for the title role in the 1948 movie version of Hamlet. He lived here at 4 Royal Crescent. In other links, the Danish capital includes a park dedicated to Winston Churchill. Churchill was taught to dance by the future mother-in-law of Laurence Olivier in Brunswick Road, Hove. Estonia. We've already done a whole episode about him. Count Eric Stenbock ruled over much of Estonia, lived at Withdean Hall, and was a little bit eccentric. Finland. More former Brighton pubs. For many years in the 90s, the Seven Stars on Ship Street was a late-night music bar called Helsinki, i.e. the name of the Finnish capital. Perhaps more interestingly, there was a Finnish-run pub, Northern Lights, on Little East Street up until a few years ago. It was one of only 2 places in the UK you could buy the gin in a tin drink, Longcrow. When official distribution ceased, the manufacturers sent an entire bus full of it to Brighton, something that was covered by a lot of the European press. Sadly, these days, it's a vegan cafe. Next week on Fact Me Up, more European Onion countries including France, Germany, and whatever this one is.